All right, today we're going to dive into a really powerful idea called the man in the heart. And it's all about getting to the core of who we really are, underneath everything else.
So let me just start by asking you this straight up. Is the person you show the world the real you? I mean, think about it for a second. The you at school is probably a little different from the you with your best friends, right? And that's probably different from the you that shows up online. Is any of that the whole story? According to the material we're looking at today, the answer for most of us is probably not. The source uses this kind of fancy phrase, a well-cloistered disguise. Really, all that means is that we're pretty good at building these walls around our true selves. We kind of hide who we really are from everyone else. And hey, we get super creative with these disguises, don't we? It's built out of all sorts of things. The way we act, maybe you try to be the funny one or the tough one. It's the clothes we pick, the way we do our hair, even things like makeup. It's all part of this outer shell, this character we're creating for the world to see. Okay, so if all that stuff on the outside is just a performance, how do we get to the actual person underneath? Well, that's exactly where we're headed next. Let's talk about finding the real you by getting past the surface. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Our source points to this piece of wisdom from the biblical book of Proverbs. It says, "As in water, face reflects face, so a man's heart reveals the man." It sounds deep, but the idea is actually pretty simple. You look into still water, you see your reflection, right? Well, in the same way, if you want to see who a person truly is, you have to look at their heart. And this idea is a total game changer. Normally, we think a person has a heart, like it's just an organ inside them. But this source flips that completely upside down. It says the heart contains the man. Whoa. So it's not just a piece of you, it is you. It's the very center of your being, the control center that defines everything. So here's the bottom line. Everything on the outside is just camouflage. It's fluff. The real person, the reality of who someone is found way down beneath all that. And that's exactly why judging people by what you see on the surface is such a bad idea. You're missing the whole story. Okay, this all leads to a pretty massive question, doesn't it? If the heart is where the real person is, then how in the world do you get to it? How can we see what's really going on inside someone else? Or for that matter, inside ourselves? Well, it's definitely not a simple thing. Our source explains that truly seeing the heart isn't a quick glance. It takes wisdom and time and a whole lot of patience. And from the perspective we're exploring, it also requires God's help. This explains so much about why relationships can be so tricky, right? We often connect with someone's disguise long before we ever get a chance to truly see their heart. So we know we need to look at the heart. But what happens when we try to look at our own? This leads us to the most difficult part of this whole idea, the heart's deception and the trouble that can be hiding inside. I mean, it's one thing to try and figure other people out, but let's get real for a second. What about your own heart? Who are you really when nobody else is looking and the performance is over? Our source doesn't pull any punches here. It asks us to look in the mirror with some pretty tough questions. It's easy to say we're honest and kind, but are we really? When no one's watching, are we driven by our ego? Do we cut corners to get ahead? These are the kinds of questions that start peeling back the layers to get to the real us. But just as we try to answer those questions, we hit this massive roadblock. And it's described perfectly in this verse from the prophet Jeremiah. The heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it? Just let that sink in. Deceitful above all things. The idea here is that our own hearts are so good at tricking us, we can't even see ourselves clearly. We might be experts at fooling other people, but the person we fool the most is ourselves. Wow, that sounds pretty hopeless, right? But the source doesn't leave us there. It shows us there's a turning point, a way forward. It calls it an offer to heal. This is where God comes into the picture. The whole point is that because we can't fully know or even trust our own hearts, we need someone who can. And the idea is that God knows us completely, every flaw, every secret, everything. And the starting point of this whole journey is that He accepts us anyway, just as we are. And that acceptance opens up a path to real change. It starts with this. Jesus knows the real you, behind the disguise, and He loves you anyway. Then you have a choice to make. to accept his offer of salvation, which is basically accepting his help to rescue you from that brokenness we talked about. And from there, the last step begins, a lifelong process where he works to heal your heart and make it new. This brings us to the core thesis of this whole explainer. It's this simple. See the heart, see the person. And if you want to change the person, you have to change the heart. Real, lasting transformation always starts from the inside out. But what does that actually look like in real life? What happens when a heart starts to change? That brings us to our final section, what it actually means to live with a new heart. The result, according to our source, is a kind of freedom, a real freedom. With God, you can finally be your true self without the disguises and the masks. He heals the broken parts and gives you this newness and freedom. You just don't have to hide anymore.
The source uses this really powerful metaphor to show the contrast. It calls the old, deceitful heart a heart of stone, cold, hard, and selfish. The new heart is a heart of flesh. It's alive, it's soft, and it actually wants to follow a better path and pursue what's good.
And this new heart starts to produce real change in a person's life. Things like patience, peace, and real joy start to grow. And our source says these aren't just temporary feelings. They are the natural results of that deep inner transformation. They're the evidence of a new heart at work. So, we end where we began, but with a new challenge. If your heart truly reveals the real you, what is your heart revealing about you today?